Hi, Robert. Been a really good week. Obviously, got the win against Everton last weekend and midweek result against Crystal Palace. I mean, how sort of proud are you of the players? I think it's 3 wins in a row now, isn't it? To kind of come through that difficult October and November and now be in a strong position going into the last game before the break.
Very happy actually, because I feel like the character and what we want to do is not always shown when you're winning games. It's how you can come back from when you lose a few games as well. So there were a few big losses before that, and to handle that in the way we did and how to bounce back and winning games again and defending very well. It was a lot of people thinking that we couldn't defend, but we showed that we can do that. We can press high, we can play out from the back. So I feel like it's a big thing to show the character of this group and the potential. But we're still not there yet where we can say that we are a top team, but we see now that we have a good character in this group to come back, and I think that's what I want to see right now, because taking steps now is to make sure we can be more stable in the performances and make sure we get more points and looking upwards instead of downwards.
And the Conti Cup's been really important this season, isn't it? And you've now got a quarter-final to look forward to next year. The draws on Monday, any kind of preference? A home game, I imagine?
I mean, it's always the cup games, and you can go one way or another. But last season we were having Man City in both cups. But if you beat one of the top teams, then you feel really strong for the semi-final. If you have a championship team, you might just expect to win, and you go through the semi-final. So it's, when we come to the quarter-final, you need to accept whatever you're going to play against. But home games is always nice because we want to play in front of our fans, right?
And just finally for me, made a lot of changes in midweek, but what's the sort of shape of the squad going into Saturday's game?
It looks like more and more players are back in business. Becky Spencer was on the grass today, but she had a sickness and getting back from that, so probably she's not in the squad for tomorrow, but otherwise we look really strong.
Hey Robert, how you doing? As George mentions, kind of since the Arsenal game, 3 wins in a row, I know that's the sort of game that you really enjoyed testing yourself in and your team in last season, and that will be the same case this season. But how important is consistency, not only of performances, but actually of getting over the line with results as well? Because it feels like that's maybe the one thing that your team has most been missing since you joined the club, is the consistency of actually getting over the line with the results. So 3 wins in a row now.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. When you become very consistent, that's when you are a top team. If you look at the top teams in the league, all of them won 4-0 last game or something like that. And when you come to that level, when you win the games, even if you don't have the best day and so on, then you are a top team. We are a top team sometimes in every game, but we're not a top team every time in every game. So that's the journey we are doing. And then it's like, okay, is everything dark just because we lose a few games? No, it's not. It's just more like, okay, this is where we are and this is what we need to fix. And when we're fixing stuff, new stuff comes up. But this is a journey, and to build a team that's going to be a top team, you need to go through tough times and good stuff. So it's logical, and it's also make sure we just keep going, and even if we lose games. So we're not there yet where we are really consistent, but I think the last 3 games have shown that we are very good to come back from tough games and actually have some really good defense work and a few really good goals. And Crystal Palace showed us that the whole squad is on the journey as well. We played some players who haven't played too much, and they looked really good. They scored goals. So it showed that we have the quality in the group, but we need to be more consistent, yes.
And I know that you'll have season targets, but also within the season you'll have sort of smaller targets. And talking about consistency, now that you do have those 3 wins under the belt, presumably that is actually motivation to go and get the 4th at the weekend, because that would just extend that consistency and the show that you can do it, lots of wins on the bounce.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we played Brighton away, which they've had a quite good start of the season, so I don't think anyone expects us to just go and smash them, but we know that if we have a good day, we have a good chance to beat them, and I think we want to be higher than Brighton in the table, and if we're going to try to compete this season with them, we need to have a good result in this game. But mainly we also need to make sure we have good performances and make sure we take the steps forward. So important game, could be a very good win if we go to the Christmas break with 4 wins in a row, but the main thing is that we take steps all the time and keep growing and keep developing, and then the result will come. I'm sure we're going to be a top team, but it's more like how quickly can we get there, and I hope that we can get it as quick as possible.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move to questions on the online feed, coming first to Megan.
Hi Robert, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Yeah, just a really quick one for me, but I know you still have this weekend's game. I was just curious, for winter break, what you and the team were planning on doing? How long of a break are you going to give them? Are you going to go back to Sweden? And is there any sort of plans for like a training camp anywhere?
I will have some time to go back to north of Sweden and have the Christmas. So that would be nice. But we actually taking the players back already in the middays before the New Year to make sure we have some good trainings over the New Year's, because we play a friendly game the first week and after New Year, and then we play the cup game 2 weeks in. So it's not the longest break, but I think they're going to get quite many days anyway to relax a little bit. But the main thing is you don't want to be too much off, because then you need to take that back and have a really hard training week when you come back. Now we find a good level where they can have 1 week off and then a few more days where they train at home, and then we take them back. But I'm going to have some snow in Sweden, so that's going to be nice.
Brilliant. Thank you, Robert. Enjoy it.
Cheers.
Thanks, Megan. Alex?
Afternoon, Robert. I just kind of want to touch on the winter break as well. And what was after Saturday? It would be 4 weeks until your next match, five weeks until your next WSL match, I believe. What are kind of your thoughts on it, really? Because it's a long break, and that could potentially come at the worst possible time. That'd be four wins in a row. Do you think that could break up momentum?
It might do, but I think the opposite, actually. To go on a break with possibly 4 wins in a row, you're going to have a long time where you feel like you're unbeatable, and that's going to be good for your self-confidence. You can look at it different ways, but the main thing is that we take steps. The main thing is how we look in the games. If you look at the Crystal Palace game, it was a very stable game. We were quite good in the build-up. We were quite good in defense work. We scored 2 goals. We created a few more good chances. And I think Crystal Palace has been quite good in the league. Even if they are in the bottom, they still have some really good players. So we're taking steps in the performance, and now we're actually winning games and having clean sheets more and more. So, and the people coming back from injuries. So that break will basically do even more for us to make sure we regroup, work harder, train harder, work on details, and then we have the friendly game and then Everton away in the FA Cup. So it's I'm just looking forward to catch a break, actually.
I just want to touch on Drew Spence for a minute, because she started every league match this year and feels a bit like an unsung hero, because she can play slightly further forward and also slightly deeper when my two are that injured. How impressed have you been with her? Because obviously she's 32 and there's far younger players in the squad, but she seems to be shining. So.
Yeah, I mean, she put the standards, how good technically and how good game understanding you can have. And then in the beginning I was a little bit scared of her fitness. Can she handle the tempo in this league and everything? But she have taken steps there as well, and now she's really fit to make sure we can press high when she's at 10. She can work really hard in the lower position as well. So I think she's a role model for the younger ones, actually. And you know, unless she doesn't really play bad, the younger one just need to keep up with her and try to get to her level, because the level she has is a really high level. So I'm extremely impressed how she play, how she want to get better even if she's 32, and the mindset every training to work really hard. So I'm very pleased to work with her. That's why we signed a new contract with her as well, because she has more to give, and I think she can actually be even better.
Perfect. Best of luck tomorrow.
Cheers.
Ellie?
Hi, Robert. Hope you're okay. There was a nice moment in midweek when Zara Bailey made her senior debut. Just how pleased were you for her to do that? And is she a player that you might look to bring into some WSL games going forward, maybe in the new year? Yeah, I mean, the thing we have done with the academy this 2 years I've been here is taking big steps with finding the organization, make sure we're bringing some really young, talented players so we can work with them for a while before they're going to be ready for the senior team. And Sarah is one of those players who shown now when she was up when we had the national team break that she can handle the training environment. You know, when the players in my team can accept a younger player for who she is and how she handled the duels and everything, then you know that you can basically play her in some games. And that's why I picked her in the squad and make sure she got some minutes in this game. She's still very young. She still have a lot to learn, but the main thing is that we want to show that we have an academy that, you know, find our own players. And Sarah is a really good example of the future. She's not ready yet to compete for the Women's Super League spots, but she's definitely ready to train with us and sometimes be on the bench and sometimes get minutes if everything is correct. But it's I just love to show our fans that the future is bright. And just on Brighton, if that's okay, obviously they made some big signings in the summer, but what's your assessment of them being so far this season under Dario? They've had a strong start to the season, but what have you made of them?
I mean, I think they're quite similar to what we were last season, where a new coach coming in with an identity of the Brighton identity as well, and then have a good match together and some quite good signings, I must say. I mean, they signed some top players and they have performed very well. Of course, they have some moments in the games where they struggle and some games where they actually compete with the top teams. So I'm impressed. I think they have a really, really good coach. The squad is strong. They have invested a lot of money in that squad as well. So they are basically up there to try to break into the top as well, just like us. So it's going to be a very tough game, but it's also Brighton is one of the teams we want to be better than. So we need to go there tomorrow and show that we are a top team soon.
Thank you. Good luck.
Cheers.
Sophie?
Hi Robert, I was just going to ask about Bethany England's form and, got back into the goals last weekend and how pleased you've been with her and I guess how much of a boost for the team is it that she's starting to score goals again?
Yeah, I think everybody feel for Bethany because she's this great person and character and we know that she scored so many goals in this league before. But for me, she works so hard all the time and try to make sure that teammates are good as well. So for her sake, I think it's good for her as well to score the goals, even if I don't really care who's scoring the goals. But her play the last games has been really good, both in and out of possession. I think she's taken steps in the relationship with the players around her. There was a talk way back that she couldn't play with Martha, but they have shown that they can play really good together. I think Hayley loves to play with Bethany. Jessica Nass loves to play with her. Bethany have played with her before. Drew have played with her before. So if you use Bethany the right way, she's a great player, and she makes the players around her really good as well. So I'm very happy that she's picking up the form and scoring goals.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Cheers.
Dan Pentland?
Hey Robert, hope you're well. Do you feel like this weekend's game is like one of the biggest games of the season, given the fact that if you win it, it kind of closes the gap on Brighton and maybe opens the top half of the table up a little bit more for you?
I mean, in one way, it's a little bit of a deal breaker if we want to try to compete with top 5 or top 6. But on the other hand, it's quite many games left after this, and I think if we can, even if we lose tomorrow and we are consistent in after the new year, we can still push for the top 5 spots. But of course, it's quite clear in the table right now where Brighton and the top 5 is and where the rest of us is. So a good result tomorrow would be good for us, but you know what? I'm not looking too much about the table. I need to make sure we get better in how we play and how we defend and how we score goals, and the result will come.
And how do you kind of weigh up the squad going into January? Do you feel like you need to add a few more players to the group? Are you happy with kind of what you've got? I know obviously you've got a couple of injuries to key players as well to manage at the minute.
I think we always look for how we can improve the squad. If we're gonna be a top team in the future and quite soon, we need to also make sure we're there to find the right talent that we can take it into the squad as well. Then it's always a few players who didn't play too much and perhaps they don't really want to sit the whole year on the bench, for example. So you always need to look at those players as well if they want to stay and fight or go on a loan, or if any other club come and try to buy them. So there will be a few players in and out, definitely. And the purpose with that is to make sure we get stronger and better. So we have a plan for that, but it's always the Christmas window is a little bit trickier because it's every team is basically waiting for in and out players. It's a little bit more slow motion than the summer window, which is a longer summer window. But you will see some players in and some players out.
I know some clubs kind of go to Scandinavia in January, so is that kind of a kind of market that obviously you'll know well and something that you might look at?
Yeah, I think the Scandinavian market is good because of the players who have free transfers from there right now, for example, and also it's a good step to go from the Scandinavian market to the Women's Super League. I think it's a lot of players have shown that that's the next step for them, and obviously I know the league very well, so I wouldn't be surprised if one of the players we take in is from one of those leagues.
That's brilliant. Thanks, Robert. Best of luck this weekend and have a good Christmas. Thank you.
Cheers.
Rachel?
Hi Robert, could I just ask you a little bit about a player we saw on Wednesday we haven't seen so far this season, which is Wang Shuang. She looked really good when she came on. I guess we've been wondering why she hadn't been playing minutes and whether she was less fit or what had happened. Can you say a little bit more about your plans for how you might want to use her and where she is?
Yeah, I mean, she played. We didn't show you the first friendly games this season because they were behind closed doors. But she played the first 2-3 games, and she was really good, scoring a goal and was really good. But then she got an injury in one of those friendly games, and she was out for quite a long time with a foot injury. So when that happens, some other players like Lena, like Araya, they come in and play and take steps, and then you have this competition when somebody coming back from an injury when it's. Who's taking those minutes because they have basically the same position. So she's back. She have waiting for the minutes. Now she got 45 minutes, and I agree. She was doing some really good minutes in that game. And then you need to look at Lena's game, Araya's game, Matilda's game, and then you have Haley and Jess. So it's a lot of competition in these positions as well. So some games is more suitable for one player and some for others, but it's always one or two players who doesn't get too much playtime, and this time has been Zhuang, but I was really happy with her 45 minutes, I must say.
Thanks. And kind of going from one end to the other, two players who have played every minute of the WSL so far have been Molly Bartrip and Ashley Neville, and they were the two starters who also played on Wednesday. Is there something about them, both of them, either of them, that kind of makes them so resilient and so sort of central to what you're doing?
I mean, in one way, it's of course who they are as characters and the way they play. They very much are the players that suits the way we want to play. And if you bring in new players, they are very good to help the other players to look the way we want to look. So if you play as a winger next in front of Ash, you know that she's going to help that winger to look the way we want to look as a team. Same with Molly. If you have her as a centre back and a new centre back comes in and a new left back this game and new pivots. I'm trusting Molly very much to make sure that those players around her will look very good, just because Molly is great to look and help others. So that's one thing. But then it's also they are very consistent in the fitness to make sure they can handle this amount of games. Some other players haven't been used to play so many games, and then it's a bigger risk if they play those games. So it's a mixture of those two, but both of them were amazing against Everton and amazing against Crystal Palace. I'm very happy to have them.
Thanks. And just something that was also more sort of novel in how you set up against Crystal Palace. You had Olga playing at a 10. Was that because you think that might be where she ends up, or is it more to look at what was happening behind her and kind of give Anna and Mighty the time sort of in the sort of more defensive midfield roles? Yeah,
mainly it was I wanted to play all three of them from the start of the game. That was the main thing. And then, okay, how can I make this work? And then Maite was only supposed to play 45 minutes, so then I knew that I'm going to drop Olga in halftime anyway. And Olga has a lot of running in her legs, and she's she's very good with a long distance shot and in those areas. So I had a plan like, let's try her in the 10 role. But it was basically to make sure the starting 11 had the players I wanted to play with, instead of Olga is not a 10 in my eyes. She's a 6 and 8, and she's very good there. But sometimes you need to do a work for the team, and she did that in the first half, and she had a good 90 minutes.
Thanks a lot.
Cheers.
We have two final questions that have been sent across by Chris Cowlin. Chris is just having some issues with his connections. So, Robert, Chris asks, what are your thoughts on the FA Cup draw against Everton?
We played them last week, so we know that we can compete and win against them. So in one way, it's good. In another way, away game, I rather want to have a home game, of course. But you know what? It's a nice trip up there. In one way, you might want to play those teams from a lower division, of course. But if you want to go far in the cup, you need to take every game you get. And I think I don't have any problem to go up there and try to beat them again. So it's fine.
And the final question from Chris is, you have introduced a number of young players this season. How often do the development players train with the first team?
Normally they train with the first team when we have national team breaks, because then we have less players. We are 25 players in the squad, which means that it should be quite many injured before we can find room for youth player to be in our environment. On the other hand, the academy taking big steps now, so we're going to have a new thing after New Year where we're going to make sure we have some of the players will train next to us on 1 day a week, and make sure we can introduce them more and more, because we want to show our academy and the gap. We want to close that so they can be closer to the senior team as well. And now we see that they actually have taken steps that they are closer to do that. So we have a plan, but we need to take it step by step, because we also need to make sure that the players can handle it and not being struggle with it. We need to make sure it's a good way, a good pathway, and we're getting there.